Every school has one, the set of classrooms too old to use, sealed off when budgets shrank or new buildings were added. At Western High, it was the North Wing, a dim corridor beyond a set of fire doors that no one ever propped open. We all knew the stories. A teacher who disappeared mid-lesson, a student who never came out of detention, doors that locked themselves from the inside. It was the sort of folklore every high school cultivates. But in senior year, they told us we'd be moving back in. The school board had finally approved renovations, and construction crews stripped the wing down to bare plaster and concrete. The doors, once chained, were opened. We'd use the space for overflow until new classrooms were built. Everyone cheered. When Principal Hayes made the announcement, new lockers, fresh paint, more room, everyone but me. Because when the fire doors creaked open that morning, I thought I heard something whisper. Room 217 was assigned to our homeroom. The first thing we noticed was the smell. Not mildew exactly, but something older, like books left too long in a basement. The walls were painted white, but faint outlines of old chalkboards bled through, ghostly rectangles just beneath the surface. Our desks were new, but the floor wasn't. The hardwood planks were scarred, gouged as if dragged by countless feet. Or nails. Feels creepy, muttered Jenna, sliding into the seat next to mine. I shrugged. Better than sharing with the freshmen, but I kept glancing at the windows. They were tall and narrow, but the glass was warped, bending the view of the courtyard outside until the trees seemed to shiver. That first week, nothing major happened, just small things. A flicker in the fluorescent lights, a draft that rattled papers even when the windows were shut. Once, when Mr. Klein turned to write on the board, I swear the chalk marks appeared a second before the chalk touched the surface. I told myself it was stress, college applications, exams, late nights. But then came Friday. We were taking a quiz. When the fire alarm went off, a shrill, pulsing scream. Mr. Klein waved us toward the door, but when I grabbed the handle, it wouldn't budge. "Push!" he snapped. "I am." The metal was hot against my palm. We tried the windows, but they wouldn't open. The glass warped further, showing not the courtyard, but a corridor. Our own hallway, reflected back, but darker. The alarm cut off suddenly. In the silence, I heard it again. A whisper, soft, layered, like a dozen voices speaking at once. "Stay." The lights flickered. When they came back, Mr. Klein was gone. His chalk still lay on the board tray, the word quiz, half written. No one saw him leave. No one heard the door open. He was simply absent. We pounded the door, screamed for help, but when the janitor finally forced it open, the hallway was normal. The alarm was still blaring, students milling around in confusion. "Where's Mr. Klein?" the janitor asked. None of us could answer. They called it a medical incident, said he'd collapsed and been taken out. But we knew the truth. He never came out of that room. The substitute arrived Monday, nervous but smiling. She lasted 2 days. On the third, she didn't show up. No explanation. Just another empty desk at the front of room 217. After that, we stopped getting subs. Teachers rotated in, none staying more than a week. Each time they left a little paler, a little quieter, until the administration stopped assigning anyone at all. By October, we had room 217 to ourselves. That's when the rules started, not official. Ones, our own. Don't sit in the back row. The chairs there creaked on their own, shifting like someone invisible had just stood. Don't look too long into the warped glass, or you'll see your reflection move out of sync. Don't stay after the bell. Ever. We learned those rules fast, and we obeyed them. One afternoon, Jenna dared me to break them. "No one's here," she whispered, as the rest of the class filed out. "Let's stay, just for 5 minutes." Bad idea. My stomach knotted. "Come on, what's the worst that happens?" Lights flicker. I should have said no, but she smiled, and I followed. The door swung shut with a heavy click. At first, nothing, just the hum of the lights. Then the whispers began, curling out of the corners of the room. "Stay, stay, stay." The desks shifted. One scraped across the floor, screeching. The chalk lifted, writing a single word across the board. "Stay." "Okay." Jenna laughed nervously. "Creepy. Let's go." But the door wouldn't open. My heart hammered as I yanked, kicked, screamed. In the warped glass of the windows, our reflections stared back, but they weren't pulling at the door. They were sitting calmly at the desks, smiling faintly, and then they stood. "Don't look," I told Jenna, dragging her away, but she did. She stared, wide-eyed, as her reflection pressed its palm against the glass. A crack spidered outward, white against the warped dark. That's when the door finally opened, spilling us into the hall. We never spoke of it again, but Jenna's hands shook for weeks afterward. By November, more students were missing. Not just teachers now, kids. Sarah, who sat by the window. Daniel, who always borrowed pencils. They were just gone. Their desks left empty. Their names never mentioned in announcements. We stopped asking questions. Asking drew attention. Attention made the whispers louder. By December, half our class was gone. The rest of us tried to act normal. We took notes, did homework, passed tests, but no one laughed anymore. No one dared. Room 217 was hollowing us out. The last day came in January. Snow piled against the windows outside, though in the warped glass it looked like ash falling from a black sky. Only 9 of us remained. The bell rang at 2:45. No one moved. The whispers had grown too loud, filling the air until our ears ached. The door creaked shut, though no one touched it. The lights flickered, and in the half-dark I saw them, our reflections, standing inside the glass, grinning with teeth too white. Each of us had a double, waiting. "Don't move," I whispered. But one of us, Eli, bolted for the door. His reflection lunged in the glass, and Eli was yanked sideways into the warped surface as though it were water. His scream cut off instantly. The rest of us froze. One by one, the reflections pressed forward, cracking the glass. The whispers became a single word, thunderous, filling every corner. "Stay." The lights went out. I don't remember leaving. I woke in the nurse's office, the principal hovering above me. They said I fainted, said stress had gotten to me. But room 217 was sealed again. Chained doors, construction signs. Unsafe, they told the school. Unusable. No one mentioned the missing students. No one asked. And yet, sometimes when I walk past the fire doors, I hear them. Voices, familiar ones, calling my name, asking me to come back. Every school has places students aren't supposed to go. At Brookvale High, it was the basement. The stairwell was locked with a heavy iron gate. Its paint bubbled and peeling. A plastic sign read, "Authorized personnel only." No one ever saw anyone use it. Not teachers, not janitors. Still, the rumor mill kept it alive. Some said it was filled with asbestos. Others said it used to be a fallout shelter back when people thought the world would end in mushroom clouds. But the story that stuck, the one whispered during sleepovers, was this. A girl went down there 40 years ago and never came back up. Most of us treated it like the harmless legend it was. But legends have a way of pulling at the wrong people. For me, it started with the key. It was late November, the building already dark by 5 p.m. I'd stayed after for yearbook committee, then lingered in the library, pretending to study but mostly avoiding the cold outside. By the time I left, the halls were empty, lights buzzing in half-power mode. That's when I saw it, lying on the floor near the vending machines, an old brass key, heavy in my hand, stamped with the number B1. I knew immediately what it was for. The basement gate. I should have turned it in. Should have left it where it was. Instead, I slipped it into my pocket and told myself I'd forget about it. But all week, it burned against my thigh. On Friday, I told Jenna and Marcus. They were my 2 closest friends, the kind of people who'd walked the same halls with me. Since elementary school, who'd sat at the same lunch table even when cliques pulled others apart. "You're kidding," Marcus said, eyes wide. "Show us," Jenna demanded. I did. The brass gleamed under the cafeteria lights. That's how we ended up in the main hall after basketball practice, when most of the school was already gone. The gate stood at the end like a set piece, its chipped paint and heavy lock daring us. Closer. The key slid in smoothly. Too smoothly. The gate groaned open, echoing down the hall. The 3 of us looked at each other, and then, as though we'd rehearsed it, we went down. The air grew colder with each step. The overhead bulbs were dim and far apart, leaving long stretches of shadow. Dust coated the walls. At the bottom, the hall split into 2 directions. To the left, storage rooms filled with stacked chairs, broken desks, boxes of outdated textbooks. To the right, silence. Naturally, we went right. The corridor narrowed, ceiling lower. The paint changed from beige to grey, the kind that looks permanent. After 20 steps, we reached a door. Metal, no window. A faded label stenciled on, restricted. Jenna tugged the handle. It opened without resistance. The room beyond was larger than expected, lit by a single hanging bulb. Against one wall stood rows of filing cabinets, their drawers dented and rusting. Against the other, desks bolted too. The floor, all facing a chalkboard smeared with old marks. A classroom. It's like they just left it, Marcus whispered. The desks were child-sized, too small even for freshmen. Paper scraps littered the floor, worksheets with names faded almost to nothing, but some were still legible. Dates, 1979, 1980. That's when the story happened, Jenna said, her voice tight. The girl who disappeared. I turned slowly toward the chalkboard. At first, it seemed blank, but in the dust, faint words had been scrawled over and over, filling every inch of space. Stay quiet. The letters trembled as though written by a frantic hand. A chill spidered down my spine. Let's go. But Marcus stepped toward the filing cabinets. Wait, what if... He yanked open a drawer. Papers spilled out, yellowed attendance sheets. His hand hovered over one. Don't touch, I began. The bulb above us flickered. The chalkboard screeched as if something had dragged nails across it. Every head in the room turned toward the sound, but the desks were empty, and yet, the air vibrated like dozens of children breathing in unison. We bolted. The hallway seemed longer than before, stretching as we ran. Shadows bent against the walls, stretching fingers toward us. The gate at the top slammed shut on its own, rattling the frame. When we finally spilled into the main hall, gasping, the school looked wrong. Not changed exactly, just off. The trophy case had fewer awards. The posters on the wall were for clubs none of us recognized. Guys, Jenna whispered. What year is it? The banner above the office door read, Welcome back, class of 1980. We didn't wait. We sprinted outside, bursting into the icy night. The parking lot was full of cars I'd only seen in movies, boxy and chrome. Streetlights buzzed dimmer, throwing weaker pools of light. Marcus swore under his breath. No way! No way! We ran across the lot, past the football field, past the sign at the entrance. The date carved into the cornerstone caught the headlights of a passing car. 1979. Jenna doubled over, gagging. I clutched the key in my pocket so hard it cut into my skin. We wandered in shock until the cold forced us back inside. The school was alive with noise now. Students laughing, lockers slamming. Kids with feathered hair and bell-bottoms walked past us without a glance. Do you think we're dead? Marcus muttered. No, I said, though I wasn't sure. We stuck together, keeping our heads down. The basement key felt like our only anchor, heavy enough to drag us back if we found the way. Then the bell rang, and every head in the hallway turned toward us. Hundreds of eyes, blank and glassy. In unison, they whispered, Stay quiet. We ran again, back toward the stairwell. The gate loomed ahead, but behind it, the basement was darker, deeper than before. Do we go back? Jenna gasped. It's the only way, I said. We shoved through, slamming the gate behind us, down the steps, back into the cold corridor. The classroom door was waiting, open wider than before. Inside, the desks weren't empty now. They were filled. Children sat silently, faces grey, eyes black pits. Their mouths moved, whispering, Stay quiet, stay quiet, stay quiet. One desk in the front row was empty, a name carved deep into the wood. Jenna, she screamed. The bulb shattered, plunging us into dark. When I opened my eyes again, I was lying on the main hall floor. The gate was locked, the sign dusty as ever. Marcus groaned beside me. Jenna sat upright, trembling, her mouth red with blood where she'd bitten her lip. The building was back to normal. Posters for the upcoming winter dance, trophies I recognized. It was over, but the desks weren't full anymore. Only one was, and Jenna hasn't been the same since. She doesn't talk much now, doesn't laugh. Sometimes I catch her staring off, lips moving soundlessly, repeating something I can't hear. The key is gone from my pocket, but at night, when I close my eyes, I hear the whispers again, faint, patient. Stay quiet, stay quiet, stay quiet. And I know they're still waiting. I never liked mornings at Holston High. The building always felt half asleep, the halls dim, lockers groaning when kids slammed them. But the worst part was the morning announcements. Every day at 8 on sharp, the intercom crackled to life, and Principal Reeves's steady baritone filled the classrooms. Birthdays, lunch menu, pep rally reminders. It was supposed to be cheerful, routine, until the day the voice changed. It was late September, the kind of grey morning where the sky looked like damp paper. I was in first period history when the speaker above the chalkboard clicked on. But instead of Reeves's usual warm, "Good morning, Holston High," the voice was wrong. It was high and thin, like a child's. It dragged each word slowly, stretching vowels until they frayed. "Good morning, Holston." The whole class froze. Mr. Phelps frowned at the ceiling, muttering, "Must be feedback." But it wasn't feedback. The voice went on, listing the lunch menu, only the items weren't right. "Today in the cafeteria we'll be serving boiled eyes, charred hands, and sweet red punch." A few kids laughed nervously, waiting for the punchline. Mr. Phelps grabbed the phone on his desk, calling the office to complain. But the line was dead, and the voice kept going. "Happy birthday to Daniel." It paused, long enough for us to glance at each other. "Happy birthday to Daniel Morris." Daniel was in our class. He turned pale, sinking into his chair. "It's not my birthday," he whispered. The voice chuckled, soft and wet, like lips smacking in the dark. "It is now." Then the intercom cut out. The office claimed it was a prank. Reeves swore someone had tapped into the PA system. "We'll find who's responsible," he promised during lunch. But the next morning, the voice came back. This time, it sang a slow, tuneless lullaby that made the hairs on my arms rise. The words were nonsense, but the melody burrowed into my head until I wanted to cover my ears. When it finally stopped, the room felt colder, as if the building itself had been holding its breath. And then came the birthdays again. 2 names this time. Neither belonged to anyone in my class, but in second period, we heard the news. A sophomore named Evan had collapsed in gym, no pulse. By afternoon, a junior named Karina had been rushed from the cafeteria in an ambulance. Both names had been on the intercom. By the end of the week, no one wanted to hear the announcements anymore, but there was no way to avoid them. The speakers were everywhere, hallways, classrooms, even the bathroom. And always, at exactly 8 Rao, the voice returned. It got worse. The voice began calling more names, sometimes 3, sometimes 4. Students whispered in fear, glancing at the ceiling whenever the intercom clicked. And always, by the end of the day, those names were missing from class. Teachers stopped trying to explain. Reeves insisted it was coincidence, nothing more. But we saw the way his hands shook when he adjusted the microphone in the office. One morning, when the voice began to drone, Jenna, my best friend, stood up and shouted at it. "Shut up, you're not real." The speaker went quiet. Then softly, it said her name, Jenna Blake. The entire class sat in stunned silence. Jenna froze, face drained of blood. She didn't come to school the next day, or the day after. Her desk stayed empty. By October, panic set in. Parents stormed the school board meetings, demanding answers. Some pulled their kids out entirely, but most of us stayed. What choice did we have? And still, the announcements came. I stopped sleeping, terrified my name would be next. Every morning, my stomach twisted, waiting for that static hiss. Some kids plugged their ears, but it didn't help. The voice always seemed to slip inside your head, whether you listened or not. Then one night, curiosity overpowered fear. I decided to find the source. The office was locked, of course, but I'd swiped a copy of the janitor's keys during study hall. At 7:30 a.m., before anyone else arrived, I slipped inside. The PA control panel sat on Reeves's desk, a squat grey box with buttons and a microphone. Harmless looking, dusty. I leaned close. The mic wasn't plugged in. Before I could process that, the box clicked, static hissed, and the voice whispered, right into my ear, "Good morning." "Thomas!" My legs buckled. It knew my name. I ran, heart hammering, back into the hall. Students were just arriving, streaming past me, oblivious. I wanted to shout, to warn them, but what would I say? That the school itself was speaking? The next morning, I waited. At 8 sighs, the intercom clicked. "Good morning, Halston." But this time, there were no birthdays, no names. Instead, the voice laughed, low at first, then louder, until it rattled the windows. Every speaker blared with the sound of it, echoing through every hall, every room. Kids covered their ears, some crying, some screaming. The lights flickered. Then, abruptly, silence. And the speakers exploded, every one of them. Shards of plastic and metal rained down, wires sparking. Smoke filled the classrooms. Fire alarms screamed. The school evacuated in chaos. Outside, huddled. On the lawn, we stared at the building. Through the shattered windows, we could still hear it, that laugh. Classes were cancelled for a week while electricians tore apart the system. They gutted every wall, ripped out every wire. The PA system was destroyed completely. When we returned, the school felt lighter. The halls were quiet. No one spoke of the voice again, not out loud. But silence can be worse than noise. It's been months. I've almost convinced myself it's over. Almost. Because last night, I woke to static from the speaker on my bedroom clock radio. And then, in that soft sing-song voice I'll never forget, it whispered, "Good morning, Thomas."